Augustine turned and saw Pliny's arm around Merle, a glass of stout beer in his hand. The waitress. Augustine turned and saw Pliny's around Merle, a glass of stout beer in his hand. The waitress beside the presiding couple, a jar from the bartender, and sauntered toward us in these. She brushed Arturo's shoulder and poured the contents in the tank, tapping the heel of her sneaker. They moved to watch as a blue flame submerged in a cloud of angelfish and zebrafish circled. At the bottom, a toadfish seemed enamored by rot. His name is Earl, the waitress said. Arturo scraped his beard, tucked his arms around his back, stuck in his hands in his armpits, and leaned toward a prostrate remora at the top. The shift's rotating a new denizen, he said. How do you mean? She said. The stage evening is determined by a wave's length, Arturo said. What stage are we in? He asked. The measure of the bowfish of the Eugene suspects a new type of error. On the other side, Pliny shot the cue ball too hard, a resounding crack shot through the bar, visibly jolting Arturo. The 8 ball clopped under a couch and rolled in the cup that Arturo had dropped. He lifted the cup, raised it in the air, and shook it above the fish tank. Augustine felt a sharp prick along his torso as the ball splashed and moved his hand akimbo. Akimbo's a word I came up with. Watch this, Arturo shrieked. The remora oared its tail and spun its disc fin against the glass. By midnight, Arturo was French kissing again, foreshadowing. The waitress, Merle, and Pliny were slow dancing, and we can skip a little. He has this dream. His sister comes, Junelle comes, he gets a car. A thud thumped. The bottle went flying and the windshield splintered. Augustine jerked the wheel one way and then the other. He slammed on the brake, and his head banged on the wheel as the car skidded to a stop. A deer flung to the ground on broken haunches, a pop blister on the road. A slight mist released and a hiss escaped from beneath the Packard's hood. Lorenzo untangled himself, scrambled over the pieces of a crown, and pulled Augustine out by his shoulders. He looked south and saw a crow black, high cropped ponytail with blue hair and feathers. Wake up, Augustine, he called. An Indian is coming. Augustine heard cobwebs of gray noise as he sat up and flexed his jaw. The man stood cross armed, his mouth south, narrow, straight, his eyes geeled. We've had an accident, Lorenzo said. It is my burden, the man said. He walked over to the deer, pulled out a 357 Magnum, put in a bullet, aimed between the eyes, and pulled the trigger. He slung the carcass around his shoulders and descended the bluff, leaving a trickle of blood, again foreshadowing. Augustine got back in the Packard and tried the engine. The battery died. They waited in silence as the sun set like a candle's last flicker. The stars salted the night sky. A faint crepuscular adagio glazed over them. They exchanged glances. Augustine rose from the car. Hey, Lorenzo, come look. Lorenzo stuck his fist in his side, and they followed each other as Augustine unlocked the K trunk and pulled out a painting. The brushstrokes were long and broken. Perhaps Junelle had given it to him, and they made a blue wave with a copper wire at its crust, a guitar folded under a wave, although the headstock made it through the other end. Augustine turned on a flashlight. Do you know what a headstock is, Anuj? No. And pointed at each corner and followed the neck before it died. What's it called? Lorenzo asked. I don't know, Augustine said, perhaps. Who's the painter? It's anonymous. The adagio's tone took a muscular arm, and Lorenzo kneeled and surveyed with his hand on his forehead. He could make out a fire, and beyond the fire, the horizon was crumbling. He hopped, took a few steps forward, and skipped like a squirrel from one tree top to the other under the dirt. What are you doing? Augustine said. Come look, Lorenzo said. They plodded over a chalky trail marked by sagebrush, cherry dogwood, and came upon a white steel trellis, like in, I, guess, My Brilliant Friend by, the Roman author, Elena Ferrante, who is Arthur Goya's sister, Sibian, Siobhan. A stage not too far away, a pretty young woman rose instantly from the seat. I think this is a draft I'm still working on. I am Hasana, she said, both hands held out with the contrast of silk and tortoiseshell. She had large bangs and elegant eyelashes. What's that you're holding? A painting from New York City, Augustine said. Oh my, Hasana said as she held it up. Quite a suit. You can keep it, he said. I wouldn't dream of it, she said. Ma'am, Lorenzo interjected. What is this place? It's a shopakora, she said. Join us. She offered the painting back to Augustine. I insist, he said, touching her shoulder. Consider it a donation, tax deductible. You're too kind, she said. I'm Augustine, St. Augustine. Come enjoy the show, she said. There are no interlopers here. They followed her down an aisle leading to a stage backlit by a campfire. Augustine scanned clockwise from 9 o'clock to a troupe basking in the night's lore. A bearded guitarist leaned against a boulder, strumming and chewing Jimson weed. Three maidens lay playing Chinese checkers over crosshatched blankets. Two of them wore coal beneath rimless spectacles. They both waved at Lorenzo. He looked past them at an area where a coyote might have been. A play being performed on a threadbare rug was now visible. The couple moved barefoot in a swath of silhouettes, the couple from in the play, the actress behind a laundry clothesline, the actor on a wicker chair, a typewriter in his lap. That's Cheyenne, the actress in Denver, Hasana said. Aren't they wonderful? If you insist, Augustin said. A tall gentleman in a nightcap bent his forefinger around a glass of Madeira. On his sides there were two violinists, both under a slicked back coiffure, a haircut adorned by a crimson handkerchief. Together, they could be seen, perhaps. They harmonize a platonic scale. I'm working on Pentecostal scales on guitar. At either end, two elderly ladies sat behind a clothed napkin swan, and standing like a lawn ornament, a short fellow in a bomber jacket and scoffed loafers took a breath from his French horn and began toggling his fingers rapidly as he started anew. Cheyenne, the actress, broke from a stilted waltz and gave her hand to Denver. From his seat, he was lifted. She leaped toward a palo verde, landed on one leg, and swept the other in passant. And passant is like a move in chess where if you go past someone's pawn, you take it. She held firm and steadily reached out her arm and slowly unfurled her fist, as in white or black. Which do you want to be? Denver lifted his right leg and stomped and swiveled his head. The light licked across his face and captioned a misspoken smile. One criticism I got is that light cannot lick, so you shouldn't use that verb. Roomy eyes, a chevron mustache. He reached behind his neck and tossed his hat into the night. The top landed on his outstretched palm, and Cheyenne flicked it into the fire. Hasana turned to Augustine. Look up, she said. The violins galloped, the guitar, I guess not then. The guitarist straightened his tempo, the French horn dizzied, the night sky brimmed, and the stars sank beneath a world of trichomes. Those not playing instruments approached the stage, arms around one another. I can make out the dew in the Milky Way, he said. The women skipped and kicked, and Lorenzo pranced, and the gentlemen in the nightcap twirled Hasana, and Denver and Cheyenne threw up their arms. Then all of them stumbled, and the can ended. The Indian advanced from the fire, and as he placed a pot upon the bench, Augustine's gastric juices curled. The pool of hunger cleft his tongue. The end. Do I have anything to say? I would say, yeah, I mean, Picasso inspired the end. It's those scenes like even a painting in Matt Damon's movie with Minnie Driver, just the scenes, the American Midwest, Octavia Cortez, Eudora Welty, um, David Faulkner. But yeah, I did all this work, so I was like, oh, I can just kind of be what's it called? Like a greedy artist and just transpose art, come up with names. And I guess the hard part was like he gets so the very beginning, if you recall, the Packard Clipper, right, the car that crashed, was going 100 miles an hour. The sun bore down and there was a horizon, and this map was a lot. It was very difficult. A shapely meadow had filled in the desert. So there's a desert. I even used Google Maps for hours. Lorenzo's head lay against the window. This is what I'm really proud of, his shoulder on the door. Just that. The brim of a Stetson hat fell along his nose. You know, those are researched. A lot of these, you know. He gurgled a dream sound and a bubble popped, and I could be a writer, you know. Augustine lifted a bottle. And so something like this is so specific. The reader forgets, right? And then, you know, you find Julesburg, Colorado. Um, and then there's Cheyenne and Denver. Um, so he drinks water, and, you know, that's an allusion to Tupac. You get arrested when you're reading or on the horizon. Um, you know, this is it's sketched, it's very peculiar. It's called Baroque, actually. Baroque. Kind of like As I Lay Dying. I don't love the story of As I Lay Dying. Um, so he goes to Chicago from New York City. His, you know, his friend got hit by a cab outside of a strip club. He got fired. Um, this is kind of like Oh Pioneers. It ends at the Mississippi River. Um, you know, Lorenzo is a character I fought for. You know, he's an African American character. It's hard. One thing I would say is Augustine's white. You know, so it's a little difficult. That's just how I chose to write. Um, of course, if you know it's me, then he's not white. But it's a long story. I'm just saying, coming up with a character is difficult. Um, Savannah, I get to travel. New York, I get to travel. That's one of the benefits of being a writer. You know, this is just like so Arturo made me laugh so hard. He's in John Font's. He shoots all these crabs with like cigarette vapor or something. So I just lost it, you know. And I guess, you know, he has autism or speech pathology or Down syndrome. Um, these are just kind of nonsense, like Alice in Wonderland things. And then I'm kind of saying, are you predicting things? Like, did I predict to this day that Tesla, you know, was going to be in the tub? And that's not true. You know, that's not true. It might be right, it might be accurate. So that's one of the benefits of being a writer. Spaceship to Mars, you know, alcohol. You got to try. Like, to me, this is the weakest part of the story. Now, people will say that's my favorite part. Um, but you know, this I love because I was there, you know. So I've never been to Oregon. And of course, I don't know what a Packard Clipper is, but and then boom. So you get as close as you can to the end. But it should be exciting. They get an accident, right? There's an accident. There's an Indian that comes, you know, they eat the deer. It's a little, you know, it's I'm a capable young man, you know, that's my argument. So we'll stop there.